Hey everyone, this is a little update to my last video on applying self-leveling gel. Um, I'm updating it because I've learned a few things that I want to share with you to make things a little bit easier. First, I want to tell you that self-leveling gel is one of the many gels that are made by Golden and Liquitex and other companies. There's soft gel, heavy gel, polymer gel, self-leveling gel, clear tar gel, and they're all clear acrylic, no pigment added. And the difference between them all is that they're different viscosities. So depending on what kind of texture you might want. They also, most of them also serve as an isolation coat to your painting. So when you finish an acrylic painting, the thing that's exposed is the acrylic paint. So should someone go by your painting with some spray paint and tag it, it would be difficult to clean that off without damaging the paint that you've got under it. So an isolation coat, that clear layer on top of your acrylic painting, is just what it says, an isolation coat, and it protects it. So, clear self-leveling gel, Golden has changed their packaging a little bit and the name of that product as well. It's now called Clear Leveling Gel. And this is a large, is this backwards? This could be backwards, but anyway, that's kind of their packaging. In my last video, I applied it with a foam brush, but I've discovered, thanks to a friend of mine, that applying it with a trowel is a lot easier and gives you a thinner coat, because some things can go wrong if clear leveling gel is applied too thickly. And I'm going to show you what can go wrong. And if it's on a big painting, it goes wrong in a big way. And I'll show you how to fix it. So, all right. So I'm just... So in my last video, I sort of talked about the benefits of clear leveling gel, self-leveling gel, and how beautiful you get this depth with it. And I used to just use it as a finish coat, and then I would put a cold wax varnish on top. But lately, I've been applying this clear layer in the middle of my painting and continue to paint on top of it. And it's really cool because what happens is you get these like little shadows of where when you go back and paint on top, the new paint is on top of this leveling gel, this layer of self-leveling gel. And so the new paint actually kind of casts a little shadow underneath it, and it's really a beautiful depth that you get from that. I could try to show that to you, but I think it would be really difficult to see. But you can probably kind of imagine that. So one of the things that can go wrong if it's applied too thickly is, or if you have airflow on this, on your painting as it dries, because it takes about 24 hours for the self-leveling gel to dry, and it will crack because the top layer will get dry before the bottom, and then it creates these crevices. And I'm going to try to show that to you. So this is just a board that just has some texture on it, but can you see in the highlights those deep crevices? You don't want that. Well, you might want that, but if you don't want that, you want to apply this really thinly and let it dry on a level surface. Otherwise, it'll all slide off, and I've had that happen. Or and you also want it to not have air on it, like you don't put it in front of a fan. So, okay, so I'm going to show you this trowel application, and I'm doing all this work on clear tarp. I'm going to show it to you. It's clear tarp because when any kind of acrylic dries on this, it just comes right off. It's how people make skins. You pour on some acrylic and and when it's dry, it just comes off like in a sheet. So anyway, so I'm working on this kind of a surface, and I'm going to raise up my board a little. I sure hope you can see all this. Put it on like that. So I'm taking my self-leveling gel, And I'm going to apply it fairly generously. But this time, instead of trying to push it around with a sponge, I'm going to take a trowel. And I love this trowel. It has rounded corners, so it doesn't make like doesn't make as many lines in your painting. And you know, I try really hard not to fuss, because in the end you don't see too much of the marks. And I'm just kind of letting this fall over the edge. So it's really milky. It will dry completely clear. But if I can't see under this milky surface, if I can't see my painting, if it's so white that I can't even see the imagery, I know it's a little too thick. And this is just going to take some practice for you to know, exactly how thick is too thick. I'm just moving it around. Might be, and I'm going to wipe my trowel off a little bit, try to get some of that excess off. Yeah, that's about it. I can still see through that. And it's going to level out a little bit, but you can just clean up the edges where it's stripped off, and then set your panel somewhere, like I said, level and no airflow. So I'm going to put this over here, and then I'm going to show you, if you have a panel that's totally a disaster, one of the things you can do to repair it, and I know because I've had to do this and it's not fun, but the soft gel, golden soft gel, and I stick with gloss because it's really clear and you won't get any cloudiness with a gloss finish. But the nice thing about the soft gel is that it's going to hold up. It's got a different viscosity. It's more like Crisco almost. And so if you put it somewhere, it stays there. So in order to fill these crevices, hang on, I'm going to grab a tool. I'm going to use some of this soft gel, and the soft gel the soft gel doesn't crack. It's just, I don't know why. It's just part of the properties. But I'm basically just putting it on with a small trowel or palette knife and letting it fill those cracks and just sort of taking off the excess. So I had this happen to me on a 6-foot painting. I mean, everything that could possibly go wrong went wrong on that painting. I found out that my floor is not level. I put it on too thickly and it created all these crevices. The other thing I discovered was that I had used some paint on the painting that was not really good quality professional artist paint. And while the self-leveling gel was drying, because it takes so long, 24 hours to dry, some of that paint, like from way underneath layers, got pulled up to the surface. And so the whole painting was changed. It was a disaster, but I learned some really great lessons from that disaster. One of the lessons I learned was how to fix it, and this is kind of what I'm showing you now. Now you may have to do this more than once, because you can see there's still some little patches, but where the white is, that's where the crevices were in my painting. And so I'm going to do this, and then I'll come back a second time and let it fill in some more. And you'll get a nice smooth surface, or relatively smooth surface. So the other things that I learned from that disaster was that's how I learned that I actually like having that self-leveling gel coat in the middle of my painting. Because it adds even more depth as I continue to paint on it. So let's see, what else? Um, all of these gels are non-removable. So the isolation coat in whatever form, of gel you use is non-removable. I like to add a varnish on top of that, and a varnish could be, and the reason is because varnishes typically are removable. So that means, let's say you have your acrylic painting and you put your isolation coat on it, and then uh, you have someone tag it. You'd really have to scrub to clean off that mark that was made on top of your painting. But if you have your acrylic painting, you've put down your isolation coat, and then you have a varnish on top. Varnishes are removable. So when you remove the varnish, whatever mark was made on top of it would come off as well, and you're just back to your isolation coat. Other things that varnishes do are create different sheens. So you can buy varnishes that are high gloss or matte or satin. And Golden makes a polymer varnish that has a satin finish that's got a really nice matte look, if you like that. It also has UV protection in it, which is additionally nice. But often after this isolation coat, I'll go back and do a cold paste wax and varnish and buff it, and it has a really nice look. And that's in another video that's on my channel. But one thing I'd like to add to that is when you have a really glossy isolation coat and you want to add you want to do the cold paste wax varnish, or even if you want to keep painting and it's really high gloss and you need to knock back the sheen a little bit, I've recently discovered that instead of sandpaper or steel wool, which can get kind of icky and sometimes little particles get in your work, these Scotch-Brite pads just, they're made for dishwashing, I suppose, will really take the sheen off. So you can see this is a pretty high gloss painting. But if I just use this in this one little corner, it doesn't take much, and the sheen is completely gone. It looks a little bit white and chalky, but that will go away as soon as it's wet again. So Scotch-Brite pads are really great for acrylic. They won't, like if you really need to sand through the paint to another layer, you might want sandpaper. But okay, so I think I covered it all. I think that's it. I hope it's helpful. I know that from my own disasters that that it's really crushing when you have a beautiful piece that in these last stages you ruin. So don't feel like they're ruined. These things can be worked out, and I hope this will help if that does happen. Always practice on a small board that you don't care about. I think that's it. Thank you. I don't know how to turn off my video. There we go.